How do you
Well,
make decisions?
yeah, how do you make decisions? I think a huge thing is like getting clear on when not to make a decision. And
Yes, that's a good one.
hi. Hello.
Hello. Here we go. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Are you?
I'm doing great with my like
I know.
super
I'm like,
girly
who,
voice.
who? Yeah. Welcome to my voice always. I,
Welcome to my life.
I used to get in trouble, like in high school. Uh, my mom would always be like, "You're smoking cigarettes. I know it." And I was like, "No, this is literally how I sound."
That's so funny.
Yeah, I was always like, "No, I swear, this is just me."
Just the
But,
bad side.
I lose my voice kinda easily when I've, like, been out and about and excited and stuff, so,
Mm.
um, yeah, because we did that scavenger hunt this weekend,
Yes, tell me all
which
about
was
it.
I know I haven't had a chance to tell you about it. It was so fun. Honestly, it was so fun. Like, I knew it was gonna be fun, but it was like I just am I'm immediately like, how can I create more of that in my life? Like,
Uh-huh.
not like exactly the scavenger hunt, but just like the energy behind it
Uh-huh.
and how exciting it was for everyone. Because okay, so my friend and I we wrote over 100 riddles, and it was also really fun to have somebody to do it with. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because we would be writing riddles and like, look at this one, you know,
Yeah.
and like nerding out over things. And then not only that, we had a few intentions we wanted to set, right? So we were talking about like what do we want people to get out of it. One of them we were like we kind of want them to have like a new appreciation for like the West Side,
Mm.
to like learn something, which I learned an incredible amount. Because so many of the riddles were like about history
Okay.
and different things that happened like historically in certain places. So ranging from like this is a civil war like on loan from the US government, it's from the Civil War, or
Uh-huh.
like you know uh Tupac did an interview here that was like incredibly famous.
Okay.
um so like just like all kinds of different like historical things, and then also like physical challenges. So we would like one of them we like dropped a YouTube link to like this double cartwheel, and we were like,
Uh-huh.
you have to do this with your team. And then we had this app that we used, so we were getting their photos and videos in real time.
Okay.
And so as the photos and videos are like coming in through the day, me and her are just like crying laughing. Like I would just be we had to go get like ice at one point, which we totally forgot. We are in the grocery store. I'm like, don't forget ice. And she's like, yeah, okay, we're here for ice. And we like were on our phones watching the like videos and photos
Yeah.
coming in and like crying laughing, just like, look at this one, look at this one. Oh my gosh, they're all the way in Marina Del Rey. How'd they get down there that fast? Like just
Yeah.
freaking out watching it like unfold before us.
Uh-huh.
And so, yeah, it went from Will Rogers all the way to Marina Del Rey, which is like, I don't know how far that is exactly, but it's a pretty big spread.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know, everybody was on bikes, and we had like we got here first and had like donuts and coffee, and then they all took off. There were teams of like 4 and 6. And then we got back, and the other thing is we were like, okay, it'll be fun because in some of them we made them do things. Like one of my other favorites was we were like, you have to go to the beach where like Pam Anderson film like Made Famous with her like
Okay.
run, and then like do the run, and you have to
Okay.
like do it in slow mo. So like there are all these like videos of the teams like running down the beach in slow mo. Like one team got the lifeguards to let them borrow their like buoys, those
Oh,
like red
that's so
buoys, and they had like a
cute.
lifeguard like truck in the background, and they're like
Yeah.
running down the lifeguard tower. And yeah, so it was just like a lot of that, and it was just so fun. It was so
Have
fun. You know what I'm realizing is it's so fun to like play as an adult. That's
yeah.
what it is, you know?
Yeah.
And you don't like we don't do as much of it as kids do. And so
Mm.
that's what I'm like, all right, what's next? Like a giant capture the flag game?
Mhm. Hell
like
yeah.
like how can we like play
Summer
more?
camp.
Seriously, seriously. How
Yeah.
can we do that?
So
Anyway,
how many
so
people how many people were there about that kinda did
it
it
was
with
like
you?
40. It
Oh,
was right
wow.
around 40. Yeah. I think it was like 38, 39 or something.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
So it was so good. And then after, it was so fun. So after we came back and we're like tallying up the points, people are like, we showed them the points they got credit for and the points they didn't. So people are coming up and like kind of arguing with us.
Yeah,
And I was
yeah,
like, which I like kind of like love that too, where you're like, no, no, we got that. Look. And they're
yeah,
like, and I'm like, okay, okay. Or I'm like, nope, nope, you didn't do the can. And they're like, what? And we're like, it literally says do the can. So we're like, having this like back and forth.
yeah.
Like you have to pay attention. And then like while that's going, we had all the photos like on a slideshow. I like put them in an album and we put them up. So everybody's like piled on this couch in this room, like watching the photos, like crying, laughing, like telling each other
Oh,
stories of their day.
that's amazing.
It was so good. And everybody like stayed late. We had like a bonfire and stayed until like real late, and it was just like, and it was great because another reason we wanted to do it is we wanted to meet new people, so we were
Mm,
like, this will be our way to like, grab that person who's like kind of a peripheral friend and like bring
mhm.
them in. So there were quite a few people who I knew but were not like quite friends, but we realized that it like really brings in people who are like playful, like can
Right,
work well on a team,
right.
is like a little bit resilient, like down to do some like physical stuff for like most
Mhm.
of a day because it's from like 10 to 5. And so the people that like ended up coming were ones that were just like real into it. I don't know, had just like good energy. So
Yeah,
I also like met a few people that I like kind
okay.
of wanted to hang out with more, and that was a big part of it too. So we were just like, felt really good to
That's
like bring
amazing.
some new like friends in a little
Yeah.
bit closer.
Like, what a great
Yeah.
idea to, like, attract. I mean, because, like, you attracted people that have a type of, playfulness and lightheartedness and energy that you really value in
Yeah.
friendship, and you created something to literally, like, attract them into your
Totally.
world, which I love?
Totally, totally. Yeah, one of the girls I was talking to, because I like put it out a little bit on my Instagram. And so one of the girls like knew me through like social media. And she was like, I was so surprised you did that. And I was like, the thing is like, it's a pretty solid commitment. Like, you're
Yeah,
committing to like 10 a.m. to 5 p.m., like on a bike all day, running around
right.
town. And she
That's the
was like,
thing.
yeah,
Yeah,
like, you can't just like pop over and be
right.
like, you know what I mean? It's not,
Sure.
yeah, you just had to be a certain type of person to like want to do something like
Yeah,
that. It was
yeah.
actually really funny because I think everyone wants to do things like that. And as we started telling people about it, and sometimes we would get a reaction from someone that was
It's
like,
kinda like, mm.
that is not my idea of a fun Saturday. And I was
Yeah.
like, what? Like that's like an option. Like people, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like it's like
Right,
so outside of what I think is like fun.
right.
Like
That's
anyway,
so funny.
so
That's
I'm
amazing.
still like buzzing. I'm exhausted. Just
I
like
bet.
so tired. It was such a like full weekend.
Now, did you
But
go and, like, were you part of a team that was, like, doing the thing, or were you
well,
you were, like, holding down
yeah.
the fort and tallying things and stuff on the other end of things?
Yeah, so actually, I'm glad you asked that because I forgot this like very important point. Is me, we decided to be in one of the riddles, and so we dressed up as old men, and
Uh-huh,
we were like, if you're here, you have to be here to get points for this riddle, you have to be here at exactly noon. And you need to look for two old men who are older and wiser who will like help you solve this riddle. And so we put on like I had like a like short like bob gray hair and like
uh-huh.
a like a pocket watch and like a cane and glasses and a mustache, and
That's
then my friend had
hilarious.
a beard on and like long hair. And apparently the teams were telling us, because that was the other fun part, is like the end of the day where like everybody's sharing their stories.
Uh-huh.
And so some of the teams were telling us, they were like, we saw you from a distance and we like really thought you were old men. And
That's
we were like, how
amazing.
did they get two old men to like hang out at the chessboard? They were like,
Oh
what? And then they got there and they were like, oh shit,
my
it's
It's you.
them. And it was so funny because Ben was like, I was like, took a video with him and he was like, this is my uncle. Like, he was just like, he was like, wow, babe, babe. And I was like, what? I'm not your babe. And that's the other thing is, I don't know what came over us, but the two of us we like pretended, we like got into character as old men and like did not like leave.
You
And
just
so
did
my
it,
friend was
yeah.
like, I have this video of her where she's like putting on her suspenders and she's like, whippersnapper, whippersnapper, whippersnapper. And I'm like, you practicing?
That's hilarious.
And for some reason, both of our old men like characters were Southern. We were like, why do we have a Southern accent?
Yeah,
So
this is
we're
what's
like making
happening.
ourselves like this is like the whole day was just so fucking silly. And it
Yeah,
felt really good
I
to just
love
be
that.
so goofy, so silly. Yeah, it was just so fun. And
I love
I don't
that.
know. I'm like, how can I do more play and
Right.
bring more play and make more events? I like think that events are like in my future. So
There's like I think there's definitely like a certain part of you that really thrives in like in that
yes.
like event meets really playful
Hmm.
energies like that. It seems like that's like this perfect marriage for just like you to be this super vibrant
Mm.
like self, you
I
know.
just love bringing people together. Like even
Mhm.
at night, it was so funny. Someone was like, she was like laughing at me or whatever, because I was just sitting back and like looking at the fire and seeing all the like new friendships that were being created, and I was
Yeah.
like, She was
Aw.
like, "This is your shit, huh? You love this." I was like, "I do."
Yeah.
I'm like just as happy. Like these two guys like really hit it off, and I saw them like exchange numbers at the end of the night, and I was like, "Yes," because I was like, yes, a new bromance has been
Yeah.
kindled.
Like a friend matchmaker.
Yeah, I think
Love
just
it.
like connection, bringing like groups together
Mhm.
is like one of my favorite things. I would definitely get
Yeah.
that from my mom. That's like
Mhm.
her thing. She loves that. She
Yeah.
loves bringing people together. So,
Mhm. Aw, I love
yeah, so
it.
I'm buzzing. I'm like,
Feeling
I'm
good.
so tired. So tired.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely
definitely.
wiped. That's the thing. Because when I was an event planner, it was like real unhealthy for me. I would have like come downs, like
Right, because you were on
the
this, like,
week, like
high.
on,
Yeah.
yeah, I started scheduling in like Monday, Tuesday, like recovery because I would just have like a serotonin like drop and just be like,
Yeah.
oh, fuck. Am I depressed? How can you be depressed? That was so fun.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes so much
Yeah.
sense. Um,
Anyway.
I think
Yeah.
yeah, I'm trying to think of what I've been up to.
Yeah. What'd you
I had
do?
it's just kinda like a catch up. It's been kinda busy lately.
I know we haven't had a chance to catch up, so we just catch up on our
We're
podcast.
catching up on the podcast. This is great. I have, like, allergies, so, like, my eyes are just, like, dripping, but oh, should we say how we are doing, like, video podcasts? Like, officially?
Yeah,
Have we said
video
that?
podcasts are happening.
They're
They're
happening.
happening.
I can't remember if we've
Yeah.
said it yet or not, but we're saying it again, video podcast, so that's fun.
I know,
And
I was kinda waiting until we got some of the tech stuff worked out because man, every
oh,
time you incorporate a new tech thing, it's like
I know.
hiccups galore,
So
like I'm
sometimes
wondering
video
about today.
podcasts.
Yeah.
Or that's the goal, I guess. I've been well, I did one of those. Asheville has a lot of like big art fair market things, and I did one of
Mhm.
them this
I
past
know, it looked
weekend.
amazing.
And with my jewelry, and it was so fun because it was my first time I was like kind of publicly doing, standing there and getting all this feedback for my jewelry, and it was really great. And I feel like I did really well, and I got a lot of really positive feedback, and it was very inspiring. And I'm currently working on like a ton of like custom like bespoke pieces for people, which is really fun too, because that like kind of that's creatively challenging and asks me to do things that I otherwise maybe wouldn't do. So that's like super fun to have this whole like creative venture that I'm doing is definitely like a thing. And yeah, yesterday I took my girls like rollerblading down by the river. It was
That looked
so fun.
so fun.
It was
That was
so
so
fun.
cute.
They're
I
like
was
the
loving
best.
that.
Yeah, and it's this whole new greenway thing that you haven't seen, and they built it all
I've
in the
seen
River
parts
Arts
of it.
District, and it's like
Yeah.
pretty much complete, and you can ride all the way up the river, and we stopped at the Smoky Park Supper Club that's up there and got like
Yes.
lemonades, and like it was just the best day. I just love like summertime is
Me
my
too. I was
favorite.
just saying thinking that. I was gonna say, it just feels like, especially after 2 years of, like, pandemic stuff, it feels like
Yeah.
I just think this stuff feels extra good,
That's
you
a good
know?
point. It's like the first summer in
I
like a couple years that it's like a regular
that
summer kinda thing.
yeah,
Mm,
that we're, like, gathering and it's, like,
mhm.
okay, and we can play, and there's, like, less fear, and, I mean, at least for us, and, yeah, I just think that there's, like, a rebound effect or
Yeah.
something where
Yeah,
I'm just
that's a great
I'm just,
point.
like, craving
Mm,
it.
mhm,
I've
mhm.
always craved it, but, like, it feels also, like, extra precious,
Mm,
everything right now, like, I'm like, "Oh, this is so good because we,
yeah.
like, had it taken away for a little bit, you know?"
Right. Right. Oh my
Uh,
gosh. Okay. So I had this thought last night, and it was kind of based off of there were some posts happening in our Master Your Mindset Facebook group,
mhm,
and it's an interesting thing. I haven't really thought about it this way, but a a place that we people or I witness people reaching out for advice, a lot of it is based on just decision making.
mm,
It seems to be an area that and I know I do, like if I have a big decision to make, I can tend to want to reach out to people to get their like take on it or opinion on it to help like
mhm,
inform maybe like some sort of decision, especially if you're feeling uncertain about something. And it just got me thinking about how I know I have like a whole bunch of different like processes around making
mhm,
decisions depending on what the decision is, and I thought it could be fun to like kind of break that down and talk about like decision making processes and what we've learned about it and what doesn't work for us, maybe what works for
mhm.
us. um
Oh, you
yeah,
jump right in because you've been clearly thinking about it, and
I've been
all
thinking
right
about
now I'm like,
it.
hmm. Oh, it's one of those things, and this is one of the things I love about these conversations is I don't know if I've ever like talked about
Specifically
this.
talked
You know
about
what
it,
I
yeah,
mean? It's
yeah,
like things that are important and like kind of run your life, but you don't necessarily like talk about.
right, you
So
just do
tell
it.
me,
Yeah,
how do you
well,
make decisions?
yeah, how do you make decisions? I think a huge thing, and it's something we've talked about and referred to, is like getting clear on when not to make a decision. and and
Yes, that's a
right,
good
and
one.
when you're in a big one is when you're in any kind of fight or flight triggery mode, you can feel a ton of pressure to make a decision because your amygdala
Dude,
is
what
fucking
is
like,
that?
we need to never be here again. So,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So we need to make a bunch of decisions right now so we're never in this situation again. When in reality, as long as you're not being chased by like a saber-toothed tiger, which is like, let's never go down that canyon again, like that
Mhm.
kind of decision. It's more something that to recognize this is not the best state of mind for me to make a decision. And like, I feel like we can all relate to making some sort of rash, like assumption, decision, conclusion when in a really heightened, triggered state. And then later, when you're out of that state, looking back and being like, fuck, like,
Mhm.
I shouldn't have done that, or I wish I didn't say that, or I wish I didn't, whatever,
Mhm.
based on this decision I made. So I think getting really, really clear on when not to make a decision is really
It's one of
good.
my favorite things you say to me, because
Yeah.
that's all like, if I'm, like, freaking out or whatever, you're always like, "You don't need to make a decision right now."
Thank you. And it's so
That's, like, your calm
relieving.
thing,
Yeah.
and it is. It's so relieving, and it's so simple, right? So it's not something because that's always the place that I'm like, "Oh, I need to fix this," and
Right.
it's not the best place to fix it, and usually my conclusions are like, "I'm never gonna be in a relationship ever again. That's how I'm gonna fix this." Like, right? Like,
Yeah, really
I will
great
just be
decision.
alone. Yeah, yeah, I'm like, "I've got it. I'm going to be a cat lady. I'm gonna live
Uh-huh.
in the woods, and I'm not
Yes.
gonna interact with humans." And you're
Yes.
like, "We don't need to make any decisions right now." And I'm like, "Yeah, but I'm pretty
No,
sure I
we
figured
wouldn't.
it out. Thanks." Like
It's so true, because when we're in that crazy heightened state, the decisions we wanna make are fucking crazy, like,
They are. They're all crazy. They're like,
I
"It's
mean, mine are
fine. I'm gonna
similar.
just chop my arm off. I
Yeah,
don't need it. It's fine."
mine are so
Ben
similar.
actually said that. He was like, because he's having trouble with his leg, he was like, "It's fine. I'm just gonna chop my leg off. It's fine."
Yeah,
I was like, "Okay."
solution,
But he
yeah.
was, like, genuinely upset. Like, he's like,
Mhm.
"The place where you're like, this feels like a really good idea."
Yeah, yeah. So for
Oh,
me,
man.
the practice that I have put into place, besides recognizing when I'm triggered and then being able to reassure myself, like, I don't have to make a decision right. I want to make a decision right now. I acknowledge that, but I don't have to make a decision, and probably isn't smart to make a decision. But that can still feel, for me at least, really unhinged. Like, that can still feel really unsafe. Um,
It's true.
Even just
This
to
is
sit in
another
that
good point.
space. So what I have done that has made me feel a little bit more safe in moments like that is I tell myself there is a future version of me. Maybe this future
Mhm.
version of me exists tomorrow, or maybe it's a couple weeks or whatever, but there is a future version of me that's going to have the information that she needs to make this decision.
Mhm.
And that little piece gives me the security and the groundedness, especially when you're like, I have to, like, I am going to eventually have to make a decision about this, whatever it
Mhm.
is. If there's something that you're like, I mean, I'm freaking out right now. Now's not a good time for me to come to conclusions about this, but I know eventually I'm going to have to make decisions about this. And so I just tell myself there's a future version of me that's calm and has more information and has whatever skills
Yes.
I need to make this decision. And that has been incredibly, like, soothing to me, to just actually be able
Mhm.
to trust myself, trust my ability to problem solve and grow and ask for support or ask for help when I need it. And that has seemed to have been, like, really effective too, because I mean, I feel like I have absolutely come up against things that I'm like, I do not even know how to even begin to find the solution to this problem, you know?
Mhm.
And like, for instance, like, I had to move in the middle. I'm trying to ground it into a story. I had to move in the middle of the pandemic, like within the first few months, because I had sold my
Mhm.
house pre-pandemic. And the housing market in Asheville was fucking insane. And
Mhm.
I had found a house. They agreed to let me rent there. And then at, like, literally, like, days before, like, they backed out, like, literally, like, the day before we were signing stuff. They backed out because somebody, like, had a cash offer on their house, because it was just, like, crazy stuff, and nobody was wanting to rent. And I wasn't really wanting to, like, buy again, because it was all up in
I
the air.
know, it's
And so
crazy.
that was
Yeah.
like a problem that I needed a solution to. And I was, oh my God, it was so, when they pulled out, when that first house, like, pulled out, pulled out of the whole contract, it was like full despair, because I was just like, I need to have a home for my children. Like, it was so crazy. And I got this
Yes.
ticking clock. And but I do remember being like, I either I can, like, I can just freak out nonstop until, like, I figure out, like, the solution to this problem, or I need to trust that there's gonna be some future version of me that, like, finds the solution, finds the place, and makes it happen. And that all panned out, and it all worked out. And I really had to, like, lean into the whole, I don't have the information I need right now to be able to make this decision, but eventually, like, something's gonna have to happen, something's gonna
Right.
happen. And it's not like
Right.
passivity, it's a very active trusting. It's not like,
Right.
oh, I'm checking out and I'm just gonna, like, be really passive and put things off until the future. It's not that. It's a very present, active thing, but it's like a
Mhm.
trusting your future self. Anyway, if that
Totally.
makes sense. Yeah.
No, totally. And ooh, there were like 3 thoughts I had. I'm like, "Where are they?" Yeah, I wrote, because that was a big thing, but, something that I feel like I've learned over the years, and also, like, when you were going through that situation, is, like, everything is so much more, like, up for negotiation than we realize. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? So
Mhm.
there was just, like, a part of me that was like, "You're not gonna end up on the streets, like, it's just not gonna happen." Like,
Right.
you might have to, like, push back how long you are where you are, but, like, and that's uncomfortable because you're not, like, leaving at the time that you promised, or like, but you're also like, what else are you gonna do? You know what I mean?
Right,
Like,
right.
so that's something that I've realized like over the years is like so many more things are like negotiable in
Yeah.
life. And I think that that's been such a thing to learn. Like, I don't know, everything from like jobs that you apply for
Mm,
and like rental agreements of like buildings and stuff like that. Like, you can like fight for yourself. And
yeah.
I don't know, I think that that also has helped me with like feel calmer in like decisions, because I'm
Mm,
like, what is being presented to you is not always what has to be like what you pick. Like, you
right.
can be like, actually, I think that this would work like better for me.
Mm,
um and so I don't know, because I just remember in that situation, like, I know it was very stressful, but I was like, you're never gonna, like, it's just like not gonna happen.
yeah,
You
because
have
that
like
was
two
the stories
girls.
I was telling myself is like,
Yeah, you were
I'm gonna
like,
be on the
I'm gonna be
street.
on the street. And I was like, that is an actual impossibility. Like,
Yeah.
we are not letting that happen. Like,
Right.
I just was like, no.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it was, I mean, I get it. But it's also because a part of that came about, I think, because, and I think we both do this, is like, you hold yourself to a standard. You say, if you say I'm going to be leaving at this point in time, I'm going to, like, I want to
Right.
be like making that happen. So it was
Right.
like you were holding yourself to like a standard of integrity, because you had told this
Right.
family that they could like be in this space and they were excited to be there. But it was
Right.
like, it doesn't really matter how excited they are. Like,
Right. That's
you
a
need
good
a
point.
home.
And it's I wonder
Yeah.
if some part of that is like, many of us grew up with like a very authoritarian type like childhood.
Mm-hmm.
Like it just was kind of the mode that our parents were in, and it was very much that like what I say goes, and it's not negotiable, right? Like that's
Right.
kind of like what I grew up
Everything.
with.
No,
And
totally. That's
yeah,
why
and
I'm
to
calling it
shift from,
out.
yeah, it's like a really good point to make that like that's actually like not really the case, like
Yes.
in a lot of things, you know?
It's I remind people this all the time when it comes to like jobs, especially like when they're looking for jobs, and they're like, "Oh, I'm underqualified, I'm overqualified," or
Mm,
"Oh, this would be great except for that line item." And I'm like, "It's all negotiable. All of it."
mhm, mhm.
Like, just say what you want and like
Yeah,
push for it.
yeah,
And it's same thing with rentals. Like, I didn't even realize that. I've like negotiated so many like things on rentals.
yeah,
Uh yeah, like, like in a different apartments and stuff I've lived in, where I'm like, yeah, no. Or we'll move in, but like we'd like you to like, change the carpet. Thanks.
yeah.
I'm like, I don't know. Just like so much of life is like lives in a gray area.
Mm,
And
mhm,
it's not as like, you're not stuck with what you think you're stuck with most of the time. Like,
mm,
so much can be like moved around to like fit your life better. But I just don't
mm.
think a lot of us think to ask for that stuff. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
So,
I think that's a such a good point.
um it's funny because I actually,
Mm,
like, as I've gotten older, I think with decision making, I don't ask many people for their opinions
mhm,
anymore. Like,
mhm.
less and less. And I think
Yeah.
that's like a um result of like my like growth and my self-trust.
Yes, yes.
um but also I think a result of just an awareness of like I kind of feel like I know what kind of advice I'm going to get from what kind of people, you know what I mean?
Okay.
Like, I know, and I think that um I don't know, I think sometimes people go to people for help making a decision because they know what answer they're going to get from a particular
And they
person.
just want it
I don't know.
reinforced. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. And
Mhm.
I think that, like, again, as I've gotten older, I've just like, I would say that you and Ben are like my two people that I like run
Mm,
things by. But really, more and more, it's like I make decisions so much more based on feeling. And
mhm.
like, also, if I give it enough time, I'll like know what emotions will stick and which are not just like the real excited ones, or the real
Yes.
like paranoid ones, like the heightened ones, you know what I mean? So I
Mhm.
know that if I just hold off on making a decision, the like true emotion will like stick around, and all the like extra like heightened ones will kind of like fall away. Um so for me, like, a big part of decision making is like buying myself time
Okay.
to
Yeah.
like see how things feel. And I will say that I know that this is a thing that I've talked about with like quite a few people. I think that for me, making decisions is like, because it's so much more like based in my feelings, is very rare that I have a hard time making a decision. In fact, when I'm
Mm,
having a decision I like am struggling to like make, it's very uncomfortable for me because it doesn't
mm,
happen that often.
mhm.
But I know that that's like not the case. Like some people like really grapple with indecision. Like one of my
Yeah,
sisters does. And like when I like hear her like talking through it, I'm like, wow, that's so uncomfortable.
yeah.
Like, and it's just like being in indecisive like space for me is like very uncomfortable.
Mhm.
So
And I
I
think
don't
that
know if
makes
you
sense
resonate
because
with any of that.
no, I totally do. And it's so funny because like this kind of stuff you can like look at like human design and different like zodiac things that are very like that speak to some of these like the systems that we use. And I know for you that that is very true, that you pretty much can have like a beat and maybe you can sit with it for a minute, but you'll know if it's a yes or a no. And that
Mhm.
happens. And for you, I think that how your makeup is that happens on the quicker scale, like of
So
humanity,
quickly.
and you're on the
Yeah.
quick end. I'm relatively on the quick end as well, and then there are people that it can take them like they need to have a
Ben.
like a long period of time. They need to go through the entire gamut before they
Mhm.
land on their thing. And so I think it's like if you identify with that, if you identify with like you have to experience all sorts of emotions and all sorts of like outcomes and stuff like that, because I think that we tend to glorify the quick decision making, like you just have a gut feeling and you just go with your gut, but that's not how a lot of people I think are operate
Mhm.
at all, and that's okay. And so I think it's like really important to say to normalize taking the time you need and doing whatever process you need to do to come to your decision. And the thing is to just get to be curious enough to learn about that process, to like learn, well, it seems like I need to do these things in order to come to a decision, and your process is going to look very different than mine and or yours, you
Yes.
know. So I think it's like giving ourselves the permission to be curious about our decision making process and recognize that we might have a bias in our mind that is telling us your decision making process needs to look like X, Y, and Z, and yours might not look
Oh,
like that, right?
100%, because
Yeah.
Ben needs time.
Hmm.
He's like I'm like a really fast, I guess, processor, and I also think that I do it so much more like intuitively than he does. And it's taken me time and it's been like a little bit of a practice to remind myself that we don't make the decisions the same way so that I can
Hmm.
have more patience for him. Because
Yeah.
and also I think that like there needed to be a certain level of awareness for Ben to ask for that. You know what I mean? Cuz he'll ask
Hmm.
for it now. He'll be like, "I don't know yet. Like I need time." And I'm always like, "Oh right, sorry."
Hmm.
Okay. And then I like wait 30 seconds and I'm like, "You ready? Did you figure it out yet?" And he's like, "Jesus." No. I'm like, "Okay, okay, okay. Sorry, sorry."
Hmm.
But
That's like that, like what a beautiful thing to like have in your relationship though, to like understand how each other makes decisions and how it's different, and to be able to have like
mhm.
respect and like hold space for those processes, you know?
Yeah, I'll give you one actual way. Like I actually buy tickets to things because he's such a slow like, and it's not that he's slow, it's just that I think he's more like thorough again, and it's not there's like much more like thought involved. Again, mine's much more like in my feelings.
Mm-hmm.
Um and so I yeah, I like I started buying I buy tickets to things. Like I'll see something that I want to go to that's in like 3 months, and I know that if I asked him now like, "Do you want to go to this thing in 3 months?" He would be like, "I have no idea."
Right.
Like that's just like not I can't even, because he also doesn't like to make decisions like too far out because he doesn't
Right.
know how
He
he
doesn't
feels
know,
yet
yeah,
in
how he's
that
going to be
place
then.
and time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I just buy tickets to things.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I have tickets to this thing if you want to go. If you don't, it's fine. No big deal. Just find someone else.
Yeah, which is
And
so
that's like
good.
how I've like learned to like deal with our difference in like decision making, because I used to get bummed because things would sell out. So
Right,
things would
right.
sell out because he and I make decisions differently, and so I just started dealing with it by just buying the tickets and then like
It's a
dealing with it
hack.
when it gets closer.
Yeah,
It is a hack.
I love
It's
that.
great. It's
Another
great.
another good hack that I've been able to use is, especially if you are somebody who makes decisions more based on feeling or like a gut reaction. I think there are people that it's more of a thought process than a feeling
Mhm.
process or some sort of combination. But if you're somebody that you just need to get clear on a gut feeling, well, one, there's the does it make you feel big or small? That's always like a good go to. Like,
Oh, love
so
that.
you have to go to, there's this event that you've been invited to and you're not sure if you want to go, asking yourself, well, does it make me feel really big to go to this or does it make me feel like small and exhausted? That's like such a good
Mhm.
question to ask yourself. But if you're not like clear on the feeling, you're like, I actually don't know if it makes me feel big or small. This
Right,
little hack
right.
works pretty nice. And it's you literally flip a coin and you say, okay, heads I'm going, tails I'm not going. You flip a coin, and when you get your answer, most of the time you'll have a gut feeling right at that moment,
Yes.
and you'll see what it is. You'll see that it's heads or something, and you'll either have a yes or you'll have a oh fuck no, I actually don't want to go, and that's a good one where if like
Mhm.
somebody goes ahead and makes the decision for you, or a coin makes the decision for you, and this is just like a pretend thing, but you could have like a gut response. I've actually used this with my children too.
It's true.
When
I've experienced that before where I'll ask somebody's advice about making a
uh-huh,
decision and they'll say something, and when they say it and it's not what I want, when and like in
yeah,
that moment I'm like, "Oh, no,
now
that's
I know
wrong."
what I want.
Thank
Exactly.
thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you for picking the wrong choice so I could feel in my body that that's not what I want.
Yes, yes. And it's really interesting
Yeah.
because the I have found that m m it gets a little bit harder to interpret, like making a decision when I know that, how do I articulate this? When you're making a really tough decision that whatever you're going to do or whatever you're considering doing, if you do it or if you don't do it, both are hard. Like, do you know those kinds of decisions?
Right.
Like, there's not like a
Mhm.
really
Mhm.
easy, like both are going to be challenging. So, um, an example of this is, in the beginning of this year, my grandmother, she fell and broke her hip. And
Mhm.
she lives up in New York, and I had, my family kind of reach out and ask if I would come up and like be with her for this like week while a lot of them were out of town. And I was like in the middle of like so much shit in my life, right? Like at that moment, I was just like, I even remember you were like, I'm like a little nervous about this because I feel like you have too much going on.
I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, I think I was actually trying to like stop you from
Yeah.
going kind
And I
of, because I
remember,
was just like I was like, this is a lot
yeah,
for you right
I
now.
know, and it was, like, and so this was, like, so I was sitting there, I remember I was, like, really trying to make the decision if I was gonna go or not, and I was, like, trying to imagine the me that didn't go and the feelings I would have being, like, not going and spending time with
Sad.
my grandma
Mhm.
and helping my family out, and it was a really tricky one for me because both were going to be challenging in their own way, and I ended up really landing on, um that me going up there and spending this time was like really going to be, and even though that was going to be hard, it was going to be challenging to be with my grandma and do, like, it was very much a caretaking thing, and it was like a lot of
Mhm.
effort. And but to me, I was like, that was going to be such an example of like my love for her, that it felt right. And it was interesting because I think that was the right decision to make. I was tired because of it, but I don't think it was like put me in the negative. I actually like felt really good about, doing that and showing up in
Mhm.
that way, and it was like this really beautiful bonding experience with my grandma. So, but that was a tricky one to get clear on. I had to spend a lot of time like being quiet and like sitting with the feelings before I was able to be like, yes, this is what I'm doing. So yeah.
Yeah, that was a big one.
Hmm.
That was a big one. It's interesting because I feel like I mean, there's so many different kinds of decisions. Like for me, a big part of like getting better at making the right ones is to kind of ask. I also another question I ask myself is, am I doing this because I feel like I
Mm,
should or because I want to?
yes.
Because especially when I was like younger, and I don't mean that much younger. I mean like 5 years ago,
My
like
younger self.
when I was younger and dumber, five
Yeah,
years ago.
totally.
uh, um, I'm older and wiser
Hmm.
now, as you can
Hmm.
see. I don't know. So many things so many decisions I made were based in what I thought I should
Mm,
do, not in what was like right for
yeah.
me. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And I think the more and more you stop doing things like that, just like life feels better all around.
Yes.
Um, and it's like in so many different aspects, right? Like in my business, that was actually a really big
Mm,
one. Was getting to a place where I felt comfortable, like listening to advice on how I should like run my business, and then saying
that's not
no,
for me. Hmm.
like I'm not gonna
Hmm.
do that. Yeah. Um, and Yeah, because when you start doing that and you're not having like shoulds kind of run your life, having shoulds run your life is like
You're
really
like
fucking
living somebody
exhausting because
else's
you're doing
life.
things that are right, and you're doing things that are like kind of off balance
Hmm.
for you and out of
Yeah.
alignment, and it just feels exhausting. But when you're doing things that are like not based in shoulds, but based in like because there are some shoulds that you really should do, right? There are times where you're like, okay, this is a should, but like I know the end result is going to like feel
Yeah.
better. And then there are the shoulds where it's like the end result is like
Out of alignment.
still like
Yeah.
grinding through this, you
Yes.
know? Um and so yeah, that's another question that I ask when I'm making decisions. And that's also why I've stopped asking for a lot of people's advice on
Hmm.
things because I'm just like they usually give you advice and based in what they think you should do rather than and then usually it's colored by their own personal experience and what like
100%.
would feel good for them
100%.
rather than like what's actually good for
Yeah.
you. You know what I mean? Like most people are not giving advice thinking what's going to be like feel really good for this person. Even like
Right.
well-meaning friends, right? Most friends are like this is what you should do
This is what
because
I did.
I had an
Yeah.
experience. Yeah, I had an experience that ended up this way and therefore it must be true for you
Yeah.
too. Like it's just
That's like a
I don't know. It's actually caused me to give less advice to all of this, you
yeah.
know? Like I'm just like instead and you're so good at this. I've learned a lot of it from you actually. Where like when I come to you for advice, you don't often just like straight up give advice. You usually ask me
Mhm.
questions to help me like kind of figure it out for
Mhm.
myself. And I've tried to like integrate that more into how I interact with people
Mhm.
too. Because I see the value in it. It's just like, you
Yeah,
know,
because I mean, and that comes from like my belief is that you have the answers that you need. I don't have the answers that you need, you know?
right.
And if I can ask you a few
Right.
pointed questions that help you maybe access some things or make you think about things in a way that you hadn't
Mhm.
looked at, then that's like so much better than any kind of like advice that I can give. I'm because like it's interesting because I do ask for people's opinions and advice, knowing full well that they are going to just tell me like completely transfer their experiences onto me like 100%.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because like I
Mhm.
still sometimes will ask it from certain people knowing that, and it's almost like I don't know, I'm articulating this for the first time because I it's almost like I want to like observe, maybe almost like observe their story and what worked for them and what didn't work for them. And I kind of like take that and I like, you know, rub it up against like where I'm at and see if it resonates or if it doesn't. And I sometimes like hearing what I don't want to hear, you know, like it to me,
Mm.
if I
Interesting.
feel like I'm just like hearing what I want, like what I want to hear, or it's like
Mhm.
everything's very like, um nothing's like if I feel like nothing's challenging me or challenging my way of thinking,
Mhm.
that can be,
Mhm.
I feel a little uncomfortable in that place. Like I like being like pushed a little and challenged in my way of thinking, because then I'll have a response of either like, "Oh yeah, this is a huge blind spot," or "No, I'm actually like feeling pretty grounded and like this is what I want to do." And but
Mhm.
if I'm not experiencing anybody like kind of challenging me or giving me like a little bit of like a different perspective, even if
Mhm.
if it is just them transferring their own experience onto me, I do think that there's a lot of wisdom. But I think it's like you have to be careful, because if you can't, if you have a hard time differentiating yourself from that, and that could be really confusing. Like, and I know I've experienced that too, where I have asked for advice from people. One of the worst things I've ever done, don't ever do this, is ask people for their opinions on your like baby name list. Like I remember asking just
Oh,
like, I think it was like
never.
family or something, but I'm like, these are the couple names I'm thinking. And as soon as I started hearing people being like, "Oh, I don't like this one, I do like this one," I was like, "Oh, this was a bad choice. I should have never ever done that." Because I actually don't want your opinion
Yeah.
on this, and I want to be able to make the decision
Yeah.
I make.
I regret
Yeah,
this
I
question.
take
I'm
that
going to
back.
moonwalk out of here.
JK.
Right. For
Mhm.
real. No, I've seen so many people make that mistake that
Yeah,
I know
don't
not
do
to
it.
make that one. But also, I'm pretty sure it's a Jewish tradition that it's like bad luck to share the baby
Yeah,
name
because
before
the
they're
Jews
born,
are,
which I'm
they know.
down with.
They're smart.
They
They
knew,
knew.
they knew it like came from
We're just
this.
gonna save you
They're
from
like,
this
it's bad
turmoil.
luck.
Yeah,
We're gonna just say it's bad luck so you
totally.
don't like harm yourself by asking your family opinion.
Totally. So, but I think it's good to like know,
Ah.
like if you are somebody, especially if you are somebody that really like takes people's like words seriously and really weighs things, and especially if they're people that you care about and that matter to you, it's going to be really important to be very conscious about who you're asking like advice and opinion for around your decision making, so you don't overload yourself and confuse yourself, you know um
This yeah, this is something that I feel like I've done like kind of uh I don't know like what the word is. It's not like naturally
like
or I've
instinctively.
instinctively
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah. I think that I cuz I realized this as like an adult that I think I don't like I am always surprised by the people that I like see sometimes asking people in their life for advice that I'm like, you don't like, and I'm like not having, I'm having a hard time articulating this. I've noticed that sometimes, oftentimes actually, I notice people asking people in their life for advice that like, I, I just like, I have no authority on what they're asking advice for, or like, even further, like, I'll see friends ask their parents or their siblings for advice when like they don't have like their parents and their siblings are like not living a life that they want. Do you know what I mean?
Interesting. Yeah.
So they'll be asking people for advice that I'm like, have you stopped to ask yourself, is this person in like in a place that I'm like trying to go? Like, do I want to like emulate anything that they've got going on?
Yeah.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But they still, it's usually with family, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they still will like ask that family member for advice when I'm like, you literally tell me all the time how you like don't want the life that like your mom has or your dad has or your sister has, and here you are like asking them for like really serious advice, like life advice. And
Yeah.
it's something that this is the thing that I feel like I've done instinctively is like I think that I've always like I don't know, I just don't ask people for advice unless they have like I guess, been where I'm trying to go in this
Mm.
particular area. It doesn't mean like I don't ask them for advice across the board, right? But it's like if they are not an entrepreneur, for example, right? And they've lived their whole
Right.
life like in a 9 to 5, being like a school teacher or something like that. Nothing wrong
Right.
with that. But then I'm not going to be like, how should I run my business? But I see people doing that.
Interesting.
And
Yeah.
especially with like but it's usually family, right? It's
Yeah.
parents, it's siblings, it's their partners, their spouses, and I'm just like, I've always been confused by that. I'm like, why would you ask your parents about like this thing when they've literally like lived an opposite life? But
Right.
I get it also because it's your family and they're
Right.
the ones that you feel like you should trust for advice. But
Or they
I
know
wish more people
me. Yeah.
asked. Yeah,
Yeah.
I wish more people like asked, is this person been where I'm trying to go? Is this piece of advice I'm asking of this person, do they actually have any knowledge around it? Um yeah, I don't know. It was kind of
That's
hard
a
for me to
great point.
articulate
No,
honestly.
you did it,
But
and that was you did it, well done, and that
thank
was
you.
a really
Let's
good
try.
point to make because I think, like, we can just this can be kinda like, an autopilot thing, like, "Oh, yeah, my mom,
Mhm.
I was like she taught me how to walk and feed myself, so I'm gonna ask for her advice about everything," and it's just kinda, like, automatic. It probably feels really comfortable also to, like, ask your
Mhm.
parent for advice if that's, like, what you're really accustomed to doing, and I think that's like a really good point to make because I don't know, it's interesting because I do feel like when I go to my dad or my sister for advice, there's a certain level of like them knowing maybe parts of me or something like that that they speak to
Mm, mhm.
that can be informative, you know, and that can be
Mhm.
maybe sometimes it's
Totally.
helpful, maybe sometimes it's not very helpful, but I think that there is something about asking advice from people who know you or who have been around you a lot. But I also think that there is something interesting about asking advice from complete strangers. This is where like the internet is great for me. Like going on being on a Facebook group and like asking for people's take or opinion, just complete strangers. Because for me, like every once in a while I'll comment on a thing in a group, but only if I'm like really having an intuitive hit where I'm like, oh, that like resonates with me, like what this person is saying. And I know not everybody operates this way. Of course, there's people
Mm,
just like verbose all the time. But for me, if I'm gonna like type a little response or something, it's going to be from a very like intuitive place in me that I want to like offer this thought to this person. And then I know there might be some people out there that are also operating that way. And I have had like really interesting feedback just literally like on like Facebook, Reddit, like whatever, from complete strangers, and they don't have any preconceived idea of who I am, and they're giving me this like just, you know, they're not filtering it through any thought of like me. And that
right,
can be kind of
right.
interesting, but again, you have to like, I think I think this is so I actually love where this conversation is going because we're talking about decision making and now we're talking about like asking for and
Advice.
receiving
Mhm.
advice. And I think that
Mhm.
the most important thing to do when you're receiving any kind of advice is to be able to like to be able to separate yourself from it and look at
Mhm.
it for a while, to not like immediately like absorb it, you know, because I think that's like the danger. I know I feel like I used to do that. I used to just feel like other, you know, when I was younger, like other people know better, and so if I had some leader giving me advice, I would just absorb it immediately without like weighing it and being like, is this actually good for me? And
Mhm.
so I think that's like a really important skill to be able to be like, I'm going to like sit with this for a little, look at it, see how it resonates. And then I'm going to pick and choose what works for me and what doesn't work for me and let the rest go, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
Yeah.
Totally. Totally. I feel like we both make decisions intuitively, so it would have been I kind of like would love to hear from Ben
I
almost about
know
this
somebody
because
who
this is
does a more
not
logical
you and I
process.
make you and I make decisions I think similarly. And
Mhm.
so but I know that that's like not we don't have the like usually we have like slight differing ways of doing things and so but right
Yeah.
now it's like we're almost like we're so in agreement because we make
Yeah.
decisions so similar.
We do.
Um
This is an area that we definitely are in alignment because like you're it's that juicy like gut feeling almost. Like for me, it's like
mhm.
decision making for me is very much like if I'm looking at a menu and then like I'll know what I'm going to order, because it'll be the thing that is just like, ooh, like, and
Mhm.
my mouth waters, and it's just like, that is what I want. That's more or less the feeling that I have around like making decisions a
Decisions,
lot of
yeah.
times, is it's like, what is that yummy, juicy, like good like fuck yes feeling. And that's
Mhm.
what I'm looking for. And honestly, like I've been practicing saying no to things unless I have that feeling, because instead of just
That's huge.
filling my like life up with like meh stuff, like saying no to the mediocre and waiting for the juicy fuck yes stuff, in my life.
Yes.
Yeah.
Ugh, it's the best. It's the best. And also I think really like that's why it's so important to cultivate self-trust,
Mm,
even in the
mhm.
smallest ways. Like that's I feel like how I built my self-trust was like tiny little promises that I kept
Yes.
over time. And because when you do that, you're like less at the whims of like the people in your life, and you're not as easily like swayed away or towards the thing that's maybe right or not right for you. It's
Yes.
definitely yeah, it's I don't know, it is like a practice. I feel grateful in this area. I feel grateful that decisions come easy because I definitely have, again, I mentioned it earlier, but I have people in my life where I see them struggle with decisions, and for me when I see it, I'm like, wow, that looks tough. Like cuz the
Yeah.
times that I do experience it, I'm like, fuck, this is
It's
so
really uncomfortable.
uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And that's usually what I end up saying is I'm like, I'm so decisive. This feels so uncomfortable. Like I don't know what the right call is here. And
Mm.
I honestly hate that feeling. It's not good. Sometimes I like put it off. I'm like, I don't even want to look at this.
Yeah.
Because it's
Yeah,
not coming to
totally.
me easily, you
Mhm.
know?
Yeah, it is a really uncomfortable feeling, and that's when I start doing all my little like tricks of being like, because usually when I can't make a decision, it's because I don't have the information I need to make the decision. Like I don't have all the
Mm-hmm.
pieces yet, and
Mm-hmm.
then I have to like just like wait. I have to be patient and wait. And I think another thing that kind of goes along with like the shoulds, like
Mm-hmm.
making decisions based on the shoulds, is like another iteration of that, making decisions based on the well-being of others as opposed to the well-being of yourself.
Yes. Yes. Oh my
Yeah.
gosh. This is something that I've had to practice. And I like, because I will say, I'll ask Ben this because I'll be like, what do you want?
Hmm.
Not like what do you feel like you have to do because it will like make other people like more like happy or because I needed that. And it's a thing
Yes.
that a lot of us do. Like what do I really want here? Like what is the end result that like would feel fucking amazing?
Yeah.
Because I actually think that's where a lot of people who are, and I could be wrong, obviously, but I think when people struggle with indecision, it's usually that. It's like they're doing the thing that they think they should do or like will be better for others, and they're having a really hard time. And I think that's where it comes from, the indecisiveness, right? Is feeling
Mm.
okay making decisions that are good for you just because they're good for you. And I
Yes.
think that's like a big part of the conversation that's happening. I think that's like often wrapped up in like self-care. Like self-care is like not going to the party because you'd rather be home and like rest and feel good the next day
Mhm.
or whatever it is. Even though that's the thing your friends are going to be like, "Oh, you're not coming out, you're not doing this. Oh, well, you should come."
Right.
Um I actually think this is also part of why I don't really like pressure people to do things anymore. I used to
Mm.
be like, "Oh, you should come. It's gonna be so fun, blah, blah, blah." Like, I
Right.
would do that to people, and now I've, like, definitely adopted your thing where I'm just like, "Do whatever feels good for you."
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
even with the scavenger hunt, I was like
Mm.
old me would have for sure been like, "Come to my scavenger hunt." And this time I was like, "You should just do whatever feels right for you," to, like,
Yeah.
literally everyone. I was like, "Just do whatever feels good for you." And I
Yeah.
think that honestly, I think that having people in your life, like, do that for you feels good. Like, I feel safer with you because I always know that, like, if I were to cancel on you last second, even if you were bummed, I know you would
Right.
be like, "She's doing what she needs to do
I
that's, like,
trust
best for
you.
her,"
Yeah.
and you would be like you would want that the most, much more than,
Than
like
forcing yourself to do a
yeah.
thing.
And I think
100%.
that's actually a really important thing to, like, cultivate in a friendship
Yeah.
because it's how I don't know. because my family uses guilt to like as a motivator, which not as much anymore at all
Mm,
since we've all started talking about it.
mhm,
Um, I know what that feels like, you know, to be like to guilt someone into doing something.
mhm.
Um, and it might not even always be guilt, but you know what I mean? Just like
Yeah,
as an example. Yeah, I think giving your friends the freedom to make the decisions that feel really like right for them. And sometimes there's like a period of like calibration where they're like, "Oh, I'm allowed to say I don't want to come over and like do the thing. I just want to like chill and like take a nap or
yeah,
whatever it is
mhm,
today." Like, I don't know. I think that's like one of the most important things that's I've tried to integrate into my friendships as I've gotten older is like
yeah,
encouraging people to make the decisions that actually feel good for them because a lot of people struggle with that. And
mm.
so if you can be the person who's like, yeah, no, do like really truly do whatever feels right. Like it just I don't know, it feels like it feels good and safe with that friend
That's
where you're
exactly what
like,
it is. It's cultivating safety in a relationship where
right.
you can make a decision that you know is maybe the opposite of what I'm wanting, and our
Uh-huh.
relationship is safe enough that you know that I'm going to hold space for that and understand that and not take it
Right.
personally and not
Right,
warp
right.
it, and just and it's like a level of trust in a relationship, like I trust you to make the decision that you need to make. Like this was
Right.
a really important place for me to get to, and it happens like with people that are able to like consciously make those decisions, because I think there's definitely, I have relationships with people that I don't know are very aware of that process, and so sometimes they do things
Right.
that are kind of hurtful. And but in my relationships that are like a little bit more conscious, I when I opened myself up to that trusting, I like it helped me chill out more. It helped me like relax. It helped me like let go of this like whatever like standard I was like holding people to, and just be able to trust that they're doing what's best for them. And then when I gave other people permission to do that in my life, it was easier for me to give myself permission to be able to be
Right.
like, I actually have to like cancel our plans because like I'm not feeling good
Right.
and I need
Right.
to.
It's full
Yeah.
circle. It's full
Yes.
circle.
Yeah.
And I'm laughing because I have a friend who she jokes that she's like, I just know if I don't pressure you, you're gonna like 90% more likely to come.
Mhm.
So she's always like, "You want to go climbing tomorrow? No pressure." And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know me. I'll be there." But thanks for saying no pressure because it like
Yeah.
it does. For me, and I think it's because of this like whole process
Yeah.
because I used to like just show up because I felt like I should, but now because this is how I like a place I try to operate from, when people pressure me, I tend to like dig in my heels and I'm like, nope. You
Right.
know, so for me now it's become important to feel like there's no pressure so that it feels like I'm choosing it. Cuz then you're choosing it from a place that feels good, right? That
Yes.
like you even if you're going to do it anyway, right? But if you get a chance to like choose it, um I don't know, it just feels so much better.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
Mm, making decisions is hard. It can
It's
be hard
hard.
and it's uncomfortable, but I
Yeah.
feel like we should have a conversation with somebody who doesn't make decisions
In the
intuitively.
same way. I would that would actually be really, I would be really interested in
I feel
that.
like is
Somebody.
this the only topic we've had where we're like in alignment completely?
Same.
um, well, maybe we could do that for another one down the road. That would be
Yeah,
fun.
that would be really
Actually,
fun.
I would actually love to talk to Ben and ask him questions about how he makes decisions because I've never really done that. I've just
Mm,
kind of been like, give him space, Sarah.
yeah,
Sarah, chill. It's like more I'm like pep talking myself. Leave him alone, Sarah.
yeah.
Let the man
That
make
would
his decisions by
I would
himself.
be
But I have
really
no idea what
interested
it's
to know
like.
that. Yeah,
I have no idea what that looks like for that man. So
yeah.
anyway.
Well, let's do
Well,
it. I
yeah.
would love to know that.
And I'd love to hear from other people. Let us
How do
know.
you make
DM
decisions?
us on Instagram.
Yes.
Leave us voice memos. They're my favorite.
Can you do that on Instagram?
I voice
Oh,
memo people all the time.
voice
It's
memos are
great.
like it's like starting to replace texting for me.
Me too.
I
I
love it so
prefer
much.
it
Yeah.
so much.
Yeah.
So much. Yeah.
Same.
I love you.
Same. I love you so much. And I will, if you guys want, we have a Patreon. If you want to, we have a bunch of like great episodes on there. And we're
They're
starting to actually collect
amazing.
quite a few there. I think there's almost like a dozen episodes on there. So if you guys would like to hear more from us, you can check out our Patreon, patreon.com/innerarchaeology, and you could subscribe. It's like $5 a month, and have access
And we
to,
create content.
yeah, more content. Yes. And support us creating more content. So, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love you. I'll talk to you
Love you
later.
too. Bye.
Bye.